Start the meeting, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I'd like to call the June 21st Committee of the Whole meeting to order. All trustees are present with the exception of trustee Snagowski and trustee McClafferty. First up is the 512 Illinois Street. Is Mark available or Jason?
Yep, I think Mark's taking this one. Mark, do you need the screen? I could stop.
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
How you doing, Mark?
Doing well. How are you doing, Mr. Mayor?
Good, thank you.
Doing well. All right. Good afternoon. This first item is the 512 Illinois Final Plan Unit Development. The applicant is Mr. John Greel. The location is 512 Illinois and 513 Porter. Property is R6 zoning and is in the Historic Preservation District. The nature of the plan unit development request would allow for a new duplex building to be located on the south of the property, with the existing building to the north, which is a 4-flat, to remain. The preliminary plan unit development was approved by the village board in February. So the purpose of a final plan unit development is mostly to just verify conformance, that the final plans do substantially conform with what was approved with the preliminary PUD. Staff notes that these plans had not significantly changed other than addressing some of the comments that we had, such as with parkway trees and foundation landscaping. And the applicant did go through the process of re-siding and re-roofing the existing 4-unit building on Illinois Street. So staff has determined that the final PUD before you today does conform with our comprehensive plan and the preliminary plan unit development. This item was discussed at the June Planning and Zoning Commission hearing meeting a couple weeks ago. The Planning and Zoning Commission did make a positive recommendation based on staff's conditions. So that's this request in a nutshell. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have, if any.
Anyone have any questions or comments? Nope. All right, I think we're good to go. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it. Next up, we have 4th Street, correct?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. With this item, the applicant is Maria Bush, or Mary Bush. She's the property owner of the vacant lot located at 623 4th Street. The property has R4 zoning and is approximately 1 acre in size. The applicant had initially formally requested 2 variances, one which would allow for the use of the well on the property in lieu of connecting to the village water, and a second variance to allow for the septic system instead of connecting to the village sanitary utility, to allow for the construction of a new single-family home. The water variance was more of a, kind of a just in case type of a request. There is village water in front of the property on the opposite side of 4th Street and along the neighbor's property to the south along the side in an easement. So the water is readily available. The primary issue with constructing a house on this property has been with the sanitary connection. The sanitary main in 4th Street does not go completely through. There's a sanitary line that ends north of this property and one that ends south of this property. The connection to the south is problematic from a topographic or depth concern. The village engineer has stated that that connection would not be feasible. So that leaves the connection to the north. Some of the surrounding lots have been re-subdivided over the years, but with the original subdivision of this property from the late 1800s, the property owner to the north owns to the center of 4th Street, and the sanitary main is on his property. And at the time, the applicant had contacted the property owner about obtaining an easement, and that was not something that had progressed, unfortunately. So with no legal means in which to connect to that sanitary main, in discussion with the applicant, it was decided that we need to go through with this request for the septic system. Now, we had the planning and zoning public hearing with this item a couple weeks ago in the June planning and zoning meeting. The following day, a neighbor, someone who lives in the vicinity and had received the public notice, was able to locate from 1998 an easement on this property to the north that we've been talking about. It's a 20-foot easement, and so it should allow for the applicant to connect to that sanitary main to the north. Since this easement is in place, staff had ran it by the village attorney and the village engineer to look through it, and then we're all satisfied with that easement. We provided it to the applicant. So again, we're in a situation here where it does not appear either of these variation requests are necessary, thankfully, because the connections to the utilities should be made. Obviously, though, with this issue, the applicant and staff and discussing this with her, she still wanted to bring the item to the committee of the whole meeting tonight, just to further discuss this item with you all. Ms. Bush is present here tonight. I'm not sure if you want me to turn it over to her right now, or if you have any questions for me.
Do we have any questions for Mark before we turn it over to the applicant?
Well, I attended the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, and at that meeting, we found out that that next door neighbor wanted $15,000 to hook up, to get an easement. Well, obviously now that easement is not needed, and I don't see why she would need either a septic system or a well right now.
Thanks, Ron. Anyone else? I'm sorry, is it Ms. Bush? Is that her name?
Yes, it is.
Hi, Ms. Bush.
Hello
Welcome.
there. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us. Do you have any questions or comments for us?
Well, I have my whole story written, if I may.
Yeah, sure.
What?
Thank you. So good evening, everyone, and thank you so very much for having me. Thank you, Mark, for presenting your side. So my name is Mary, and together with my family, we want to be a part of Lamont's community. But in the last year and a half, it has been proven that it's going to be more challenging than I have hoped for. So starting from the beginning in 2018, when I before I signed the contract to purchase the lot, together with my real estate agent, we went to the village and waterworks to find out if all the necessary connections are there and we're going to be able to connect without a problem. And everyone said yes. But my mistake was actually taking their word for it and not getting it written down. So last year, when we were working on the engineering plans, our engineer let us know that there is no easement in place. So the connection to the south, like Mark said, would be too shallow and not reliable. And then we were not able to obtain the connection to the north because our neighbor wouldn't grant us an easement. Now, I reached out to the village looking for help, and thankfully Jason has really tried to find a solution. But after numerous meetings, we were not able to find a solution, and that's when I applied for septic. Now, without having, based on the information that has surfaced after the original zoning meeting, there is an easement, which a developer that has extensive knowledge of the village has provided. However, after the meeting, I still don't know if I'm necessarily able to connect. And at this point, I would like for everything to be done properly and for the connection to be engineered and extended to our lot, just like it was supposed to be from the beginning. With us losing a year and a half at this point, I mean, it has changed our timeline completely. My daughter was not able to attend school or start school, which we planned for accordingly. The dramatic costs of construction have skyrocketed. And at this point, I'm really not sure. I understand that the easement is in place, but it's still not black and white saying, hey, Mary, you can connect to the sewer system without putting the septic in. So what I'm looking for from you is, and from this meeting today, is to find out that I can move forward and have the decision made so we can build our home. As of right now, we've lost enough time and resources, so I want to move forward.
Ms. Bush, thanks for that background, and we feel for your trials that you've gone through, and we're always welcome and wanting new families in Lamont, so appreciate your interest and look forward to having you come in. But I think it's pretty black and white, right, George? They can hook up, correct, to the sanitary? Is
The
that?
only question I had for Mark, and then is it not recorded? I mean, when we ran title or?
Well, staff doesn't do a title search on the neighboring properties. This on the screen right now is the easement document, and it's a recorded easement.
Okay.
The reported county recorder information in the top corner of the pages.
Okay. No, I was just wondering. Well, then, I mean, I don't know what else could make it, whether it be a letter from our village attorney, but our engineer has weighed in that it's a valid easement. Our attorney has weighed in. So there shouldn't be any issue with connection into the easement.
Yeah, Ms. Bush, this isn't a common occurrence. This is kind of a very extraordinary circumstance. So appreciate you, working through this. Typically, we have this information, or we know of this information, correct? It seems like this seemed to, I don't know, get lost somewhere in the shuffle or.
It wasn't part of our records and in terms of our atlas maps. I mean, I guess we wouldn't have done a title search on the neighbor's property.
Yeah.
So that's probably why it wasn't found.
And something like that is usually, conveyed upon,
Yeah.
the owners buying the property. I mean, usually you have this information and, because that is a selling point. So, but regardless, the good news is that this has been found, correct? George, anything else we need to do to?
I guess it would be what comfort level from the property owner petitioner? Would it be a letter over and above from the village attorney, from myself? But we're getting that from our attorney and our engineer that it's a valid easement and you can connect.
Okay, so what about the lost time, the constant changes to the engineering plans that I had to make? Because based on the engineering and our constant calls, I had to make changes left and right. And what if for whatever reason something does not go right and I cannot connect? Because let's say there is someone else connected to it without having the proper paperwork. Or what if I'm not, at this point, I'm trying to just be careful and having everything actually black and white. So, why wouldn't it be an option that the village actually extends it to my lot like it should have been done since the beginning? So I understand that there were divisions to the lots. I understand that happened, but with the divisions, shouldn't every lot have the capability of connecting on their own property to their sewer?
Anything new that's developed is one thing, but this, as Mark mentioned, is a platted subdivision from the late 1800s. We have a similar issue on Fifth Street, Second Street, where there are no utilities. Fifth Street, we run the water and sewer out there, but
Yeah,
there are other sections, correct, Ralph? I don't know if there are other areas of town where we don't have
Yeah,
means to get water to a site.
it's part of development, right? So like unfortunately, it would be nice if that was in our code that we have to demand to have that, but that is upon purchasing of the property. That should be an understanding of, one of the things that as you buy the property that, so that comes through due diligence. So no, it's not standard. We would like it to be, but we can't always demand that.
Usually at development is when we
Yeah,
require the dedication.
yeah.
So, like I said at the beginning, it was my due diligence when I went into the city. My mistake was not getting it written down in paper. But I don't understand, why wouldn't this be a rectified issue? Since these, the sewer hasn't been put in the 1800s. It has been put in the 80s after the tornado went through.
So just so I understand, you're looking for some sort of, all right, so if it was a perfect situation, just work with me here. So you originally thought you could hook up, and then you're told you can't hook up, but if you could hook up, you still had costs to be incurred to hook it up, correct? I mean, was that not your understanding?
No, I understand that there's a cost to actually hook up. I understand that. But since we're here right now, wouldn't you cover the costs of the hookup because of the lost time? I mean, granted, it's been a year and a half and someone found the document within a day. And anywhere I went within the village, everyone said, there's nothing we can do, apply for the septic. And my neighbors wrote a petition to not get the septic in there. So, do
you have a cost estimate you're concerned about because it is rectified, it's on paper, you can connect, but your issue is the cost. Do you have a cost estimate, Mark, or the petitioner, for bringing it the other half?
No,
the property to the north to the lot line?
Information, and we found the easement. That's one of these things that we would want to further explore with working with the village engineer and public works in terms of what specifically needs to occur here. Can't you just run a service line to the sanitary manhole and that be a sufficient connection? Or does the main need to be extended all the way to her property line, or even further, through, her property line to the far end of her property line? Those are some technical issues that, I don't know the answer to. Typically with development, when you say hypothetically had a number of vacant lots, you would have the utility extended to the far property line, so that then when the next lot comes in, it can connect, it extends to its far property line, and so on and so forth. But in some unique situations such as this one, where it is the last vacant lot on the block, there's no need to further extend it because there's no other vacant lots. That's something that we can look at. We had the variance last year with the property on McCarthy with a septic line as well. And I believe he's only extending it to the middle of his property. I think that was something through further discussion with Public Works.
Thanks, Mark. So we could require the bare minimum of, as long as it works from an engineering standpoint and the house can operate on sewer, just to run a service line from where is it at now in the easement to your property. We have the option not to require it to be extended to the far south lot line because it's going nowhere, right?
We'd all want to further discuss this with Public Works and the village engineer, but that's certainly on the table.
Is that what we've done? We just annexed land.
Typically, we do require it to the edge of the.
But if there's nothing after the end.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is the thing that the situation you're debating is, should our Public Works put it in or them? And I thought we just annexed land down on John, south of you, where they were running, we had basically the same issue of who was paying to get the water and the sewer lines over. What's the street that's a little bit south of you?
129?
Maybe, right? Wasn't there new?
132nd.
132nd.
But there were new homes that were coming in. It was essentially the same situation as this. And generally, the homeowner that puts the property, what we said then was the homeowner that puts, when they put it in, they put it into the middle of their lot, and it's the next person to extend it over. I thought that's what we told them in that
Oh,
discussion.
Rizzo's property.
Yeah, Rizzo's property,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So we had the exact same discussion there, right? And it's just like a developer. If a
Yeah.
developer comes in and develops a property, the utility is available, right? What we're telling her is, you have sewer available to you. Now you've got to go connect to it, just like the 4th Street connection on the water. They still had to run the water from the water main to those houses. That's the same thing here. You've got the sewer available to you. You have an easement to get to the sewer. You just got to connect to the sewer. And that connection is 30 feet from your property line to the neighbor's property line, because they were allowed to go halfway through to the point they needed it. She's going to go halfway through to the point she needs it and run it in hers.
Yeah.
I mean, that's.
Yeah.
I think she's asking,
Precedent, I think.
correct me if I'm mistaken here, aren't you asking because the village sort of told you no, nothing for the past year, you're asking them to absorb the cost, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So it's because of a mistake she feels that the village made, they want us to take up the cost. So that's the issue, I think.
But then we find out there really wasn't a mistake.
The delay. So,
It was a delay, and then I mean there's skyrocketing costs that are happening right now, because a year and a half ago I would have said, you know what, that's okay, I can actually do this because it's within my budget. But right now, with lumber prices going up and everything, on additional costs that I had to pay for the engineering plans changing, I understand that it might be a part of development, but if I had the document in hand a year and a half ago, I wouldn't have those issues.
What is the cost to bring it over?
That's what, Mark, we still have to find that out, because is it just a service line? Is it something more substantial? Our code or our practice has been for the property owner to also extend it to the far lot line, or at least halfway. But that may not be necessary because this is going nowhere.
So did we
That's the last
originally
one.
tell her there was an easement, and then there wasn't an easement, and now there is an easement?
Correct. When I came into the village in 2018, before purchasing the lot, I went to Public Works and I went to the village office and I asked, can I connect to all necessary connections on this lot? And everyone kept saying yes. And I was there with my real estate agent. So when I originally purchased the lot, even within the listing, it said that all the possible connections that I will need are there. And then a year and a half ago, my engineer said, hey, guess what? You're not going to be able to connect to north, and going south is not going to be a liable option. So we need to figure this out. And that's when emails with Mark and Jason started.
So it was listed as the real estate as the easement was there and available, and you bought the land on that assumption, and then
Your engineer told her that it wasn't there, but it is.
Her engineer, not us.
Right.
yeah.
But
So-
my engineer checked the paperwork. I worked with John A., the lawyer, and he even called the city checking if the easement is there. So it's not, it hasn't started with my engineering saying, hey, it's not there. It started with,
It was the
sorry.
engineer at the time.
John, my engineer said, hey, the easement's not there. Let's start working on it to get it resolved. And what happened was I went to my neighbor and my neighbor said, okay, let's talk through a lawyer. So I hired John A., who checked with the village to see if the easement is there, and they said no. So I bought the lot thinking, yes, the easement is there. I can move forward and I can get everything done and ready.
Okay, so, yeah, again, unfortunate this happened. I think usually, we can't, come out of pocket for, incidentals that we can't foresee, right? But I think in this instance, maybe one thing that we can consider is to waive the sewer tap-on fee. Is that
Yeah,
possible, George?
Yeah, we have some opportunities for the tap-on fee we could we got to figure out the costs and we'll do that with Ralph and Jim Kanker. What is the cost to connect? And we probably can be bare minimum. We don't have to require it to go to the far edge of the lot line because this is the last one on the line.
That would save costs.
That should save money. But what is the cost of the actual hookup? We do have a sewer tap-on fee that potentially we could put towards that cost, but let's figure out the cost.
Okay.
But Mark, from your standpoint, there is no, since it's available, there is no variation needed. So this will, correct?
This is an issue. It's technically not a zoning issue. So, it's something that as staff, we might want to look at if there's some sort of alternative process for these utility issues, because, technically doing a variation isn't even the ideal solution. It was, though, getting to a point where it seemed like there was no alternative other than the septic. And we kind of had been dealing with these issues through variances, even though a variance is intended for zoning issues, and this isn't a zoning issue. But yes, it appears the easement's in place. It's been recorded. From the quote unquote case standpoint, it seems like these issues are hopefully resolved. Now, we don't have to close the case specifically, in case that there is something that pops up and then there is the need to still pursue the septic. We can keep that quote unquote open for some time, so we don't have to have the applicant go through that process all over again.
So one thing we should probably consider is when people say, hey, can we hook up? We could always tell people they could hook up, but I think what gets kind of lost in the shuffle is do they have the easements to hook up, right? And I think that is probably, maybe some miscommunication that happened. Hey, can you connect? Yeah, we got sewer there, but you have to be able to have the easement through there. So I don't know if that was communicated by John A. or if that was communicated by the real estate agent that, hey, the easement was there. But do we ever tell anyone, hey, the easement is there when we're inquired at it?
I mean, it's somewhat subjective whether or not water and sewer is readily available. What does that mean? Because a lot of times you have the easement, but it's still 200 feet away. And then we have to decide, is that
Cost effective.
is that really, is that over the top for the village board to require someone to connect to something 200 feet away?
Yeah.
Is that readily available?
But that is, but it is.
It is.
Because we're allowing them to tap on. We have developers running varying distances all the time,
Yeah.
right? So
Sometimes 9,000 feet.
the point is where you're not going a mile for it. There is cost. Even if it was there, there's still a cost for her to go in and connect to the water main and the sewer lines, right?
Yeah.
There's always some kind of cost, and it varies depending on how close. So the question really should be, how close is the main to them, right? Our answer, or the question we should be answering when they come in and ask is, how close is the nearest main or the nearest sewer, right? Because as long as they're in the village and there's a sewer that's by them, they can, even if the sewer's 2 miles away, if they want to pay the 2 miles, they can pay the 2 miles and we'll run it, right?
Yep.
So it's really how close are they to the sewer line if they're in the
And
village?
do you have easements to get to?
And do you have the easement?
Yeah.
In this case, we have the easement. There was appears there was some confusion when it went from yes to no to yes. That it's not clear exactly how it did, but the easement was there. The neighbor sounds like the neighbor's trying to take advantage of a situation.
Well, that's my question. How much did the neighbor really know? I mean, I'm assuming he already knew this prior, based on,
He knew this prior because the lot was actually sold 3 times within the last 6 years. So he knew that.
Yeah, I mean, I think
that's
So
what-
he knew it,
that's-
yet he was
He should have
asking for
taken less- He should have
15,000.
taken less than 15 grand if he knew that,
Yeah.
if there was already an easement that he gave.
Now he's gonna get nothing, right? I mean,
Yeah.
but,
friendship.
Well, here's the thing. The reality is it would be surprising if we did this lot and didn't have an easement going all the way to the next property,
yeah.
right? And it turns out we did, right? The
Yeah.
point is it was there
But
and
it
that was
took
the.
a year and a half to find out. And it didn't come from the village. It came from a developer that works within the village.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and John, John Antonopoulos too, I mean, he was the attorney at the time when that easement was written, but we do 100 of these a year, so a lot of people missed it. I think that, you
Do
know,
we track the easements, or is that the landowner's jobs to track the easement?
Easement would have been on the plat, right, of the neighbor, if we looked it up. Let's see if it's on their plat,
Was it recorded?
if it's recorded.
it was.
It was recorded, okay.
But is it, so if they pulled the plat from the county, is it on the plat?
Well, I mean, the subdivision plat predates the easement by decades. So it
Title
should
search.
show up when someone does a title search, or if when the property's sold, there should have been a plat of survey. A plat of survey, is not something that gets recorded or filed with the county or with the village. The only time, and we get folks asking for plats of survey all the time, because we require them when folks come in for certain types of permit, but we don't necessarily keep those on file. And the homeowner should have the plat of survey from when they purchased the property. So, it's a lot from the 1880s, 1890s. We have a sanitary main that was put in the 70s or early 80s after the tornado. And that's not when the easement came in. So that complicates things, is that this main and the easement actually don't relate to each other, because the easement came along another couple of decades later in the late 90s. So there's no recorded subdivision plat showing the easement. It would just show up theoretically when a surveyor doing a survey of that property, doing their work, should do the title search and look at all the recorded documents and be able to find it. So the neighbor should have known that they have an easement, of course.
And so the neighbor kept it from Ms. Bush, that there was an easement there and he was trying to sell it, is that?
No, it's a different party that had the easement on there. So the easement that's actually there is named to someone else than the person that actually owns the lot right now.
With the easement being recorded, it should be tied to the property index number, the parcel number. So and I've done this since we got the easement document. If someone were to go to the county recorder's office, put in the neighbor's PIN number, they would find the recorded document. So when every single one of the current property owner and the former property owners since 1998, when they purchased the property, part of their due diligence in doing that and doing a title search and such, would have come up with this being something on their property.
So who told you you did not have an easement, Ms. Bush? When did you say, oh man, I guess I don't have this?
When I first contacted Jason and Mark, when I started looking into this more.
I thought you said your engineer told you this.
The engineer mentioned that we do not have a proper easement to be able to connect to the sewer. But when I started looking into this, talking to my neighbor, and when I contacted Jason and Mark, that's when it sort of came out that the easement is not in place.
So your engineer told you or Mark told you?
The engineer, at first it was the engineer that told me that the easement is not in place. And then after I spoke with my neighbor, I went to Jason and Mark to talk to them and find a way to actually be able to connect properly to.
How did your engineer know, what led your engineer to believe he didn't have an easement?
Because when he looked into connecting south and found out that the connection south won't work because of the pitch, he started looking into connection to the north. He sent me a couple of documents of easements, and he said that the easement in place is a prescriptive easement and will not be able to connect with it going north.
So if he did everything correct by going through Cook County, he would have found that the easement was there.
Was recorded, yeah.
Is there, have you gone back to him for monies owed for him not doing his correct due diligence?
Found there is an easement in place, but it's a prescriptive easement as he named it, or the village named it at this point. And it's for the way he explained it to me, he said that it's any work that would be done within, when something's broken, something's not working, but it doesn't allow for new connections to that sewer.
He said you could not connect to it with the new connection?
Sure, paraphrasing that, that's essentially it.
Do you have documentation from him that you could share with us on that?
I mean, I have the easements that he did send me. I can share those with you.
Yeah, I think there's grounds to go after him, and I think,
Prescriptive easement shouldn't be any kind of document. A prescriptive easement would be, there's a road that's been there
yeah,
100 years that isn't in a right of way or an easement, but it's been a road for 100 years. So that allows for the continued use as a road, and nobody's trespassing on the property. So, regardless.
yeah. Yeah, I think what started this, if I'm hearing you correctly, is that the engineer did not do his full homework in finding this easement. And therefore, you came back to the village saying, hey, I don't have it. And again, I mean, unfortunately, it's not our job, correct me if I'm wrong, to do the engineer's work on this. Is this correct? Is this? So it sounds to me that the engineer gave you some false information that, again, we'll be, hey, we feel for you. But I think in this situation, this is something where, this is, who was the engineer? What was the engineer's name?
Brian Malone, he's worked with Lamont quite a bit.
You know him, George? I have not.
Mark,
Mark would know. I don't know the name.
do you know him?
The name's not ringing a bell, but
It's M Engineering.
M Engineering.
Martin M Engineering.
it's on the bottom of the screen as well on this.
He's also worked with Sean from Alston Architects, who has worked with the village as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would see if you can find documentation from him, because that's one step in
Yeah.
the process that.
Okay, so, yeah, I think we could work with you, Ms. Bush. Again, we feel for your misfortune. We could work with you on, the Tapon Fee. And I think, unfortunately, again, I'm not a lawyer here, but it sounds like you got some maybe misinformation from your engineer that started this whole delay. And again, I think maybe that's I'm not going to tell you what to do, but the one thing that we can do is, work with you on the engineering. Is that something, George, you and Mark can work on?
Yeah, once we get some numbers, and we'll work with Ralph and Jim.
Okay. Well, Ms. Bush, I again, wish you the best of luck. Do you have any other questions or comments for us?
I'm speechless. But no, I guess not.
You understand there's a tap-on fee we can work with you on, and also we could limit the requirement to only what's necessary to serve your property. And what that means, that other properties, you'd be required to go over and above. You'd be required to hook up your own property plus connect it, plus extend the line to the either halfway point or even the next lot line for future development. I think what we can do is we can require only what's absolutely necessary to serve your property, work with you on the impact fee, and work with you on investigating is a harsh term, but looking at what the liability from the engineer and get them to participate in the cost difference.
Okay, let's investigate and let's see.
Okay. Thank you again, and good luck.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Next up, the branding update.
Jason, you got that one? There you go.
Hold on, guys. There we go. Now for something completely different.
No transition?
No. Yeah.
And while you're getting that going, we do have, this is the one item under new business, but we also want to have Ralph after this update, give an update on well 6, and then I have a couple other updates. So
Okay.
finish the night. Go ahead. Go ahead, Jason.
All right, let's show the brand.
Yep, we got
All
it.
right, guys, thank you. Yeah, so if you recall, the village hired Altogether Studio back in March to work on branding and marketing strategies for downtown Lamont and the village in general. So this effort started immediately in March and March through April, and it continues now. And we wanted to present where we're at with a new brand for Lamont Downtown. We're really excited about it. So, we start by just kind of going back, and they did this little word map here of some of the themes that we saw in previously reports and other marketing initiatives. And we followed that up with some survey work, and we have a survey here. Some of the results are here, as well as some of the stakeholder groups that we had, focus groups, and then some different sessions that we had between Altogether and village staff. And from that, we worked on some themes that are relevant to Lamont. So you'll see a lot of familiar themes here, that being transported. My wife just yesterday told me that Lamont reminds her of Brigadoon, the way you come into town. You could tell she's a movie musical fan. The landscapes, geology, the hills. It says being unaffected, but I kind of described it as being tough too. Durability, building Chicago and moving through limestone and all these things. Everything that makes Lamont and gives Lamont its Lamontness and makes it so distinct from any other community I've been in. And on top of that, these days, the recreational amenities are hugely important for us. The Forge has changed Lamont in some ways to even a greater destination than it already was. And a lot of these marketing efforts are related to the Forge and trying to keep up with all the opportunity that the Forge gives to Lamont. And so, just sharing here some of the things that we were considering as we're working on the marketing. I love this idea that downtown is the cooler sister that looks up to her older sibling, and as a fun way to share with the history without getting too bogged down on some of these overused terms, as they say. We hear quaint a lot, but authentic or charming. We're looking for language that was a little more modern and a little more dynamic, as well as, of course, it says tie into other marketing campaigns. So the village is part of the Heritage Corridor Convention and Visitors Bureau. So we're very active in marketing to our CVB's communities, which includes Route 66 and Starved Rock. Obviously, Enjoy Illinois is an important effort that we participate in. And the city of Chicago and Chicagoland has sort of, CVBs have gotten together to market regionally. So we'll jump in. Here's where we're at. I'm going to read it. I know you all can read, but I'll try it too. So you can't fake real, and you don't have to when you have the most picturesque terrain in Chicago and the best outdoor activities in the Midwest. Our downtown eateries, taverns, and shops are nestled into our hills and housed in original limestone buildings stamped with the names of families who have been here for generations. In these buildings, you'll find local makers who took a leap to create one-of-a-kind food, shops, and adventures. We're continuing this legacy of hustle into the future by investing in recreation, transit-oriented development, and state-of-the-art waterfront parks. No matter where you find yourself in downtown, you'll always experience Lamont Real, with the tagline, "You can't fake real." So there you go. What do you think? Or I'll move on. So This thing stinks on Zoom, I'm telling you. I could barely see it. You're about the size of a postage stamp on my surface here.
Jason, it was a tough lead in from 4th Street. I've been a
We're
good job.
stealing the logo from Longhorn Steakhouse. Theirs is "You can't fake steak."
Well, that's also true. And so here's the logo that we're presenting. And what we like about this is it has sort of a clean, modern look to it, of course, with the sans serif font but also has a kind of retro vibe. It looks like something we describe as being like stamped on a piece of iron or found on a piece of wood. And right at the heart or right at the center of it, putting 1836. Being able to make a nod to our history and our age and the like. It was designed to sort of lock up with the Village of Lamont's logo as well. We would use the same blue there when using in conjunction with the village logo. And then we started having some fun with it as well, looking at ways that we could use the aesthetic of this brand or this logo for other folks. So, we for an example, we see an opportunity to use it downtown to kind of help extend that brand by, creating signage or window decals and the like. I think it would be pretty neat to see walking around downtown. As well as some applications. So we're getting new photography. And again, using, we do some print advertising still, especially in travel magazines, as well as anything geared towards parents and families. And so we got some new photography, which we'll also use in social, of course, and online. But, here's some ways that the logo would interact with some of the imagery. And then some of the words that new words, I guess. Oops, I'm sorry about that. That we would use to talk about downtown. So again, that sort of being real, though, is the center of all that. So next steps for us is we'll do a staff review next week, wrap up the collateral, and shortly after that, we'll be back with the final strategy. We'll present that to the downtown focus group. I should add, we did present this earlier on June 2nd to the downtown focus group. So they were the first to get a chance to look at this. And we had All Together Studio present at that meeting. And then, of course, we'll bring that back to the village board, whatever, sort of the final project is. And just to wrap up, some examples of how we could use the advertising, how we could use this in print advertising, so you can kind of get a sense of what we're doing there, talking about you can't fake real. And so here we have some kids in the quarries. You can see the logo. We almost always put Home of the Forge on our marketing, since we are, trying to capture the same audience and the same customers. LamontDowntown.com and our social assets there on Facebook and Instagram are also being evaluated as part of this engagement with All Together. And then finally, again, an idea of what sort of Lamont Real would look like in some advertising. So I'll stop there.
Hey, Jason, I got one question. When did the abbreviation for establish get changed from EST to EST or EST to ESTD?
I think they were trying to line it up under 1836. So I do sometimes see it EST''D, maybe like kind of an oldie fashioned version.
I don't know. I just think like ESTD is for something else. Yeah, exactly.
I thought the same thing. I was thinking the same thing with the abbreviation as well.
I think it should be ST. I mean, I hate the nitpick, but it looks like it's some acronym for something else, which
generational thing. I don't know.
I don't know. Google that. Google.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was the only thing that bothered me in the whole thing.
Well, we're doing good if that's the only thing that bothers you.
Yeah, right. That's a 99%.
Yeah, I think So I think it's all about real, which I get, you know, hey, I'm way over my skis here. I'm a left brainer, not a right brainer, so everything
For easier said than done.
easier said than done. 1836.
Yeah, it is. After you listen to 4th Street for 45 minutes, it is easier said.
Yeah. Maybe capital E, small st, but anyway, I'll
We
get
will-
off of that.
Yes. All right.
But no, I mean, again, this is not my area of expertise, but I think it looks cool. I think real works with me. I mean, anyone else?
We're
Questions?
looking forward to it.
I'm not
We
a
have
fan
some
of the fake part.
fun ideas to kind of present it to the community. And we want to get started on it right away this summer with the soirees and the car shows and the like. You know, there's some opportunities to do art and banners and other things along those lines.
Hey, Jason, what did, and not to throw Kevin under the bus, because it's a question I get, or I see on Facebook, and, you know, what about, you know, any thoughts of why you went away from historic downtown Lamont? You know, it's just throwing you a bone, because I keep getting it from Kevin over here, where
Jason,
we're trying to market towards other demographics,
The
but
biggest key on this one was because they want to be different. There's so many towns all throughout Illinois that are historic. So we were trying to kind of twist that and not focus on that part of it. That was the whole goal of this particular group. Right, Jason? Did I speak?
Yeah. I mean, we're historic, but we're also a lot more, especially with the Forge and the like, you know. So by saying real, by putting 1836, we're able to tell people that we're historic without having to limit ourselves to that word, and get to use sort of something a little bit more modern. And I always say, you know, it resonates with me. When I saw it, I thought for sure it would resonate with folks that live in Lamont. You know, there's so much love and passion for the downtown. But, you know, you've probably heard me saying over the last, you know, few years that's what makes Lamont so special, is it's such a real place.
well,
And
Jason,
we're surrounded by suburbs that aren't as real.
Jason, the thing that I like about Lamont is that it brings back good memories because it's a historical town.
Yep.
People want to think about the past and that it was a good time in their life. And to be honest with you, real, for me, I don't see a connection there. Reality TV, I don't like it. It's all you could watch now. So being real, and I'm sorry to, you know, give a little negative here, but I got to be honest that, you know, I don't get the connection to the dynamics of what Lamont is versus what maybe we want people to think it is. Real and Lamont, to me, they don't go, buddy. That's my opinion. I'm only one guy, but I want to share that.
I appreciate it.
you do see the issue with historic, I mean, everyone calls himself historic.
Well, I do, you're right, but there is only one Lamont. You could look at towns on the Mississippi
that's a better
River that are
point,
part of, well, let's face
Yeah.
it, the geography here is unique. And Lockport is not Lamont, and they say they're historic. But they don't have the bluffs here. They don't have the geography, the topography that we do. The steeples, they have one maybe, or they have the limestone. But this is a unique town. I don't think we need to run from that. I think we need to embrace that now more than ever, because this is a turbulent time in life. There's a lot of problems going on right now. So do we want to look back over fond memories and cherish what brought us to this place? Or do we want to get past it and think of, you know, things that are sort of like, I don't know, outside of what we operated in?
Yeah. And I think, you know, that's why we're going with something that's really imagery heavy. You know, to me, this is a pretty nostalgic image. You know, a couple kids having fun at the fishing hole. You know, and I think that's where we could kind of lean in on when you say a memory, a good memory. For me, that's sort of nostalgia. And I like nostalgic experiences for sure. So I think the imagery coming out will be incredibly important to sort of tie in. You know, on an image like this, it's so hard to capture those hills and the bluff. And so, you know, kind of being careful with the photography to kind of use it to highlight what makes Lamont different than, you know, any other community in Illinois.
Those images you got are great. The pictures, they're fantastic. I think
Yeah,
them by
credit
themselves.
to Molly Hebda, Motion Inspired Photography. She's the one who took those images and is working with the village on the photography. So
They're
we have
great.
photo shoots lined up each month for the next, well, now I think the next 4 months. So we should be getting a lot of great images.
To that point on the tagline though, Jason, you weren't here at the time, but when we went through the village-wide branding with the new logo, we got bogged down with the tagline, so we decided to do no tagline. So I mean,
Shocker.
and I don't know if the tagline even is that important anymore. I mean, you're right, that advertisement does well without the tagline, probably. But I think there was like 6 or 8 options, and then the village board couldn't decide, so that we just went with no tagline. And instead used campaign specific taglines that weren't really our tagline. But I mean, how often do you need a logo with your tagline? So it's something to think about.
Yeah, and I think we'll strive to have the same amount of flexibility. We use it as kind of a framework to talk about the durability of Lamont, and again how it makes it different than in any other place near us. But there's a lot of flexibility in here, and this is really like shot number 1 at this. And things move so fast today with social and whatnot. It's hard to keep up, and so anything that's not flexible is doomed to fail.
Jason, I think to Kevin's point is that I think there's a tagline, right? You're trying to get, so, hey, we're real, but that doesn't mean you necessarily go away from historic, right? So.
No, we started with downtown being like sort of like the cool sister, and trying to make it a little bit hipper. It has become a destination. It's not, there's nightlife, more or less, I guess you would say, in downtown now. So we kind of want to be able to appeal. We don't want to totally tie ourselves into a box, but I wouldn't be here if it wasn't a historic town myself. That's what I love most. I think, we're going to look for opportunities to tell people, like, there's nothing in downtown that says to the world, this downtown's on the National Register of Historic Places, for example. And I think those are real important stories to tell. The canal, we have better and better relationships with the Canal Corridor Association. You may have saw they just brought in their bike share, but telling the story of the canal, I think is very important for us, not only in Lamont, but through the CVB as well. So you can't tell the story of downtown without telling its history. And, what I love about Lamont too is, not only is it an old community from the 19th century, but it leans into some of the more fun aspects of its history, such as Smoky Row and the like. And so there's a lot of opportunities. I was talking with Marisa Schultz, one of the principals of All Together Studios today. And as this rolls out, we want to work with, for example, the Historical Society. They were part of our focus groups on creating a more modern take on a walking tour, where, you're kind of digitizing some of it, putting it so that people can access it from their mobile phone. We want to do more like placemaking and signage around some of the art. We have these wonderful, for example, the tile murals that are around downtown. But if you don't know the story of Lamont, you might not know what those murals mean. So we want to do more, I guess, interpretation of some of the history that's around as well. So you'll see it lean pretty heavy into the history, just without saying the word historic. But the imagery and the actions will enhance that, I hope.
Jason, one of the complaints I've heard mostly from the old timers is we no longer use the term the Village of Faith. So
I've never heard that before, Ron.
We did not get the complaints like I thought we were going to get with the water tower being painted. I thought that was going to be the end of everybody, but no, I think there's still ways you can use it.
since I'm not an old timer, I don't
Yeah, that's true. Did, Ralph, you had your hand up, I think, or is that for the next item?
No, can't we just use really historic?
Hey, there you go. Real historic.
Yeah. We'll paint that on the sides of the public work vehicles, Ralph.
Hey, Jason, though, I would suggest to the girls, though, like, I mean, that kind of logo on the top, it, to me, is very cartoony or for like more Park District than it is for downtown or for a, like a city. Because I love the corner one, I love the bottom one, with
Yeah,
the,
yeah.
with the 1836, but.
Yeah, they just brought an illustrator on board to help with some of that stuff and tighten it up. We did want it to have something of an illustrative quality just because that's kind of contemporary, but I'll definitely pass that along. And that's going to evolve, over the next couple weeks. And I'll keep you in the loop, Janelle. And whenever you want us to go back to the downtown focus group, we're available.
Okay.
I like the stamp except for the D, so not to point that out.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
you're right.
period there instead.
Or put capital E, small letter ST, or, I don't know.
We'll figure that one out. Don't worry. We got the
what's-
minor for that.
I did Google ESTD and there's 4 different acronyms and one of them is not established. So they're right, easier said than done is one. Janelle, good job. Electric ship technology demonstrator. That's a good one. So
I Googled what is the abbreviation for established, and the only thing that came back was EST.
What's at 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock? Are those hearts?
No, they're supposed to actually be kind of a diamond, sort of a stone feel, but it comes from actually, if you look at the village logo, the way the lines come in and just like the blue portion there, it's kind of supposed to be inspired by, the cuts on it are supposed to be inspired by that part of the village logo, which represents the valley. So it kind of has a little bit of a nod to that, as well as, I think, kind of like a diamond or stone. Again, something that speaks to durability.
I can see that on a shirt or something like that, that stamp.
I like the stamp.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I want to get some merch for sure, some stickers and shirts. Can't wait. All right.
I actually like the slogan, "You can't fake real." I think that's kind of cool.
I do agree with you. Anyway, the wavy, it looks kind of soft to me. But anyway, I'm going to shut up right now. Let's move on. Good job, Jason.
I feel for Mark and next for Ralph. I get to be the guy that comes on and talks about Lamont Real and
I want to know, Mayor, how many marketing meetings at ATI did you participate in?
They wouldn't let
All
me
right,
in.
I will hand it over. Thank you.
I would stop them.
How much we paying these guys? Thanks,
All
Jim.
right, good work.
Thanks.
Don't forget historic, though, is what we.
Another awkward transition, the well number 6, speaking of old, and go ahead, Ralph.
Well, speaking of real, it's gonna be real expensive. I know that. So, I don't have a lot of information, and we did have a meeting today on Zoom with Lane, and I'm getting a lot of questions on, what happened, what's wrong. As you all know, 2013, the well was pulled. So there was a lot of things that were right in 2013, and they weren't, they didn't have to be replaced. But 8 years later, we're digging into it, and now they do. So there's a lot of bearings that are out of tolerance. There's a lot of seals. There's some wear on the impeller shaft. So as they're digging into it, they're getting into a lot more that's wrong. And I do not have good news. It's going to be at least 3 more weeks from what they're telling me. I'm planning on nailing down a day this week to go out to their shop with Jerry Therese, our water superintendent, to view everything, on site and just take a look at what they're finding. So it's going to be some more time. We need to keep the water restrictions in place. Just for the fact, like today, we had an apartment fire on State Street. And, with that well down, we need to make sure that we're providing fire protection. So I do not have a lot of good news. The thread stretch, if you guys have questions about thread stretch. So these pipes are screwed together and they're 8-inch pipes. So the well is 1,400 feet deep to 1,600 feet, whatever we set it at. But if you think about the weight of those pipes and the motor and the shaft and the bowl assembly, when you pull it out, those threads, they stretch. And they were fine 8 years ago. But now that the well was pulled twice, those threads have stretched, meaning every pipe has to be rethreaded to hold the weight of that system. So I don't have any good news. It's gonna be a lot of money. I think our goal as a village is to get that well online no matter what. And that's what we're trying to do. So hopefully in 3 or 4 weeks, we'll have that done. And, you know, for the dog days of summer, we'll be set and we'll go back to the outside watering.
Hey, Ralph, it sounds like, you know, maybe when we pull it out, threads, you know, pulling it out might cause additional wear. The one thing I would recommend is just, can we reprice out everything brand new on it? I mean, is that, and my point is I don't want to keep putting Band-Aids on it if we need a whole new system. I'd rather just, hey, people, I think residents would understand, hey, we need a whole new well. Because the last thing we want is, you know, 4 or 5 years later, 7 years later, we just putting Band-Aids on it.
No, I understand what you're saying. I completely do. So we'll have an option coming up to buy a new motor. Now, a new motor is roughly $175,000. So I know price, you know, it's all relative, but a refurbished motor will be, you know, $145,000. So you're going to have options. And I'm going to present that to the board, of course, you know, once I get all those options, you know, available. So I don't want to keep band-aiding it either, but we also have to keep in mind, we want that well online because we need that well online for our system.
Yep.
And Ralph, I mean, talk about that. You might have an option to potentially rent a motor to get through the summer and then install a brand new one in the fall. Would that be the option?
That's going to be an option that we should go with, to rent a motor from Lane, to get it in the hole, to get that well pumping again. And then when the water demand is not there, say in October or November, which no one would ever notice, we'll change it out. We'll put the motor that we refurbished or buy new, whatever we decide. We'll put that one in the hole and that will be ours. So there are options that we have.
Ralph, was that a new motor? What was it, 8 years ago or so, or was that a refurbished?
That was a refurbished, Ron.
Was there any warranty?
And what I mean by, well, they only offer, everybody offers, I checked into this today, it's a 1-year warranty. After it's put in the hole.
So was it a refurb of our pump, our motor, or was it a motor that we bought that was refurbed?
The original motor was refurbished in 2013.
Okay, so our option would be to refurbish our existing motor or buy a new one.
Correct.
Okay, and then is the time period, because if we're, sorry, hold on. So we're assuming we're gonna, it sounds like your recommendation is to put something else in there, let's say a leased pump. So is the time period to get that pump online based on the rethreading? Right, are we wasting time by not making that decision today? I mean, I'm assuming.
We don't have that decision today because we don't know exactly what's wrong with the motor that we have that's getting looked into. So it all depends on parts available from the dealers, and we all know how everything is not available anymore. So I think a new motor, I'm trying to find it right now, it was 20 to 30 weeks out.
Wow.
That's impossible for us. We cannot even consider that as an option.
But I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm doing a great job here explaining. So I know we have to rethread.
Yeah.
How long is it going to take them to rethread?
I would guess 2 weeks.
Okay, is there any way to accelerate that timeline?
No, I've already pushed. I'm pushing every day, Dave.
Okay, I'm just wondering. Okay, so we have 2 weeks to decide if we're going to essentially to decide what we're doing with the motor, because as soon as it's rethreaded, we want to put something in the ground, right?
Correct.
So rethreading is our bottleneck right now,
Yes.
right? Because
taking apart the motor and finding what's wrong.
But we don't have to do that. We can go. We can decide right now to go in and put a loaner down in there. But we still would have to wait the 2 weeks for the rethreading, right?
Correct. Yes.
So we've got 2 weeks to make the decision, but we don't. I guess what I'm trying to say is, if we're going to put a loaner in there, we want to make that decision as soon as we possibly can. The motor's got issues, and we're deciding between refurb and we're deciding between a new one. let's put the loaner in as soon as we can get the loaner in and then decide that and go into the winter months when, to your point, when we can. So that's why I was trying to figure out where the bottleneck really is. They don't have to do anything with the motor. We know we got issues with that motor. That's what I'm hearing you say. There's issues, it's gonna cost a lot of money to fix, or we gotta buy something new. And that's gonna be a lot of weeks out, so I'm hearing a loaner. So do they have a loaner available like in the next 2 weeks?
They do.
And is it the same capacity that we currently have or greater?
Yes, it is. It's a 375 horse electric motors. It's the same thing we have.
Okay,
How much does it cost per month to loan it, to borrow?
I believe it's 2,700 a week.
and then again, and the last point, John was making a brand new pump. If we went in and got new pipe, they would still have to do the threading anyway, right?
That I have to look into.
But we couldn't do that faster than 2 weeks, could we?
No.
Okay.
Is the rethreading on site or do they have to take the pipe to the shop?
It's already at the shop and they've already been doing it for the last 5 days.
Okay.
So what they're doing with the threading is they recommended a round thread, which is a stronger thread than what we had because of the weight of the well. So we're doing that. So the thread doesn't stretch.
And does any of that pipe need to be replaced?
Yes.
And are they already getting the replacement? Or is that gonna take longer than 2 weeks to get the
No,
replacement?
they already have it.
Okay,
They already have it. So yeah, the timeline, the quickest we can get it in is 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks.
okay. Okay, so I guess my thing is let's make sure that our decision on the pump isn't extending our timeline. I guess that's the only thing I'm hearing.
Right.
And Ralph should have a proposal we're hoping by our board meeting on Monday.
So I mean, it sounds to me, we're definitely moving forward with renting the pipe. We're rethreading. So the only delay is just rethreading, correct? Is that?
Correct.
That was what I was trying to say too, yeah.
Okay. And in the meantime, it's 20 weeks out for a new motor. You're working on that. So, you know, by the 20 weeks, we're out of our peak season. So.
Right. I just looked it up. For a refurbished motor is going to be 8 to 20 weeks. And then a new motor was 20 to 30 weeks. So we'll see what they find with the motor and what went wrong. And then I'll bring it to you guys and we'll decide.
Hey, Ralph, how long does it take to detach the rental motor and put in a new motor?
In the fall, when we plan
Yeah, I
on
mean,
doing
what
it?
I'm getting at is, can they do this in the middle of January? Can they, you know, what is is it a big process or is it just like
It is.
changing a tire?
No, it would probably be a 20-day process.
Oh, wow.
It's
But
kinda
there won't be no water restrictions. So no one's going to even notice.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Yeah, that's the big thing.
Right.
No, I just didn't know if it's not moving, things freeze. I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
But we'd probably be looking at November, I'm assuming, to redo this, not in the dead of winter, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
Okay,
or it's a little bit warmer.
all right. And Ralph, so you said it's 8, I get these weird questions too, but you've answered quite a few of them. So 1,400 feet, how many, you mentioned this last time, each pipe, what increments are they in? Are they in 25-foot increments?
20, well, before we had a few that were cut and rethreaded it back in 2013. So they range from 20 feet to 22 feet.
Okay,
And now we're going to have more that are cut and rethreaded and we're going to have new pieces put in. So it's going to vary.
and how many gallons per day was well 6?
1150.
I'm sorry,
1150 per minute. Sorry.
1,150 per minute?
Correct.
I got all these goofy questions. So, okay,
Which is
All right.
basically a million, it's 1.6 million a day.
1.6 million gallons?
A day, yes.
Okay, I think that's a better number for me. All right.
You'll remember that one.
A new pump will last probably 25 years.
That's the going rate. I mean, knock on wood here. That's what well 5 is up to now. We've had great luck with that well.
So basically, 1.6 million gallons per day, that equals how much we put in lawns and our swimming pool on a daily basis. Is that kind of, I mean, isn't that the way to look at it?
Yeah, you know,
A lot of water.
yeah, it's a lot.
All right, so water bill should be marginally down, is what I'm hearing.
Yes.
All right, thanks, Ralph. Any other questions for Ralph?
Keep up the good job, Ralph.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Right.
Kevin.
Thanks, Ralph. Ralph, the equipment down on State and 127th, that's for the fixing of the water main, correct?
It is in that lot on the corner there. Austin Tyler had some miscommunication and they walked off the job the other day and we're trying to calm them down a little bit and get them back in Lamont.
Okay. All right, sounds good. Thanks again, Ralph. Anything else?
Just a couple quick items, update the board. Probably gonna be sending out soon, but want to get your input on, you know, the event series this year as we emerge from the pandemic, car shows, we're having the soirees. Were a huge success this week, but Heritage Fest, a little more children driven with all the jumpies and different toy. We're thinking about taking another year off from Heritage Fest, but working with the park district, assuming they could find a date, probably August or even September, of doing a Saturday soiree type. It'll be a little bit differentiated from what they're doing, but more of a concert on Saturday.
Maybe like a step up on the bands or something like that, maybe.
Yeah, we could maybe a better band
Yeah.
or Chicago. Could we get Chicago?
We got some connections.
No, but, and I think, you know, that kind of goes into with, Jason was gonna, probably next time we talk about the marketing, just doing more smaller events throughout the year, spreading it out a little bit, so, but thought it'd be good this year, maybe August, maybe September. The parade is coming back on Sunday, September 5th. So we're starting to hear a little bit more about that and, keep it top parade. So.
Okay.
And speaking of, you know, winding down the pandemic here, our board meetings, I am waiting for some equipment. We'll eventually get back up to our spot, but I want to talk to you guys about updating our remote attendance policy. I talked to Mike a little bit, our attorney today. Seems to be working where if a trustee had to be out of the office or out of town, as long as we have a quorum present, we can modify our existing rules. We have a policy in place now, but it's a little bit outdated. As long as there's a quorum in place of continuing remote attendance, so as long as we had 4 of you guys here, 1, 2, or 3 could be remote. And we'll update the policy. Does that seem?
No, I like it.
Sounds
I mean, I
right.
think, you know, people, hey, you have a cold or cough, you don't know what it is, you
What
know.
about statewide? There used to be something like you could only be off like for business or.
Gotta check into that. I think it's,
You couldn't be on
I
vacation.
think it's broadening out a little bit. Yeah, so we'll be consistent with state law though.
Yeah, I mean, as long as it changes with the state.
Yeah.
Because I know that, I remember that as well. That was the issue, is you couldn't be on vacation and vote.
Okay. The other component on the, you know, we've kind of overcompensated with not having anybody here because of safety issues of putting everything out on YouTube. And I think for voting meetings, you know, for our 2 meetings a month where we vote and they're formal board meetings, that's fine. But for committee meetings, a little bit more of a workshop, it's informal. Do we want to peel that back? And since people can now come to our board, it's still public meetings, but how much do we want to be putting out on?
I'd like the board meetings on Zoom because that's the
Okay.
official, I mean, I don't know if,
In committee, maybe we can peel that back and make that more
Yeah.
informal. It's still public meetings if you guys are good with that.
I would say though, maybe some of the like planning and zoning committee meeting,
Yeah,
meetings that you want people at that to understand what's happening, I think are good to be on Zoom. It gives us another platform
okay.
that people have gotten used to. And if we turn that off, trying to go back, and I do know, I do feel like there are people that have been going to meetings because it's so convenient.
Yep.
And like planning and zoning to me, I think that's a good one for people to see.
And it preserves the record really well.
Yeah.
If you had to
Yeah.
go back and dig in on the detail of what did the board say.
How's our workshop? So I think it is, like Jason's point, I think it would have been easier for him to be here.
Yeah.
on some of those for the cows.
Okay. So we'll adjust our policies, I think, and then work with our other committees we're giving them the option to continue Zoom or just do it in person. Planning and zoning, I don't know if there's another one, anything on the agenda for July. Maybe doing a hybrid, continuing on Zoom while bringing everybody back.
Well, I mean, I think like, community of the wholes, they're longer meetings. It's better when you're in person. There's some board meetings that there's only like one or two things on there.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to say they're rubber stamps. Nothing's a rubber stamp, but sometimes it makes more sense,
A lot of the issues have been worked out.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll do a little bit of both, and then if staff ever needed to be remote, they can still call into the board meetings, but,
Yeah.
all right.
All right, cool.
We may, July 12th, I know Rick's going to be out. We might be able to get everything on this meeting and then cancel that July 12th. I don't know if anyone has any summer, not throwing you to the bus, Kevin, but back in the day, summer schedule, we used to go down to 2 meetings a month, and we'll do that case by case, but we're thinking July 12th, we might be able to cancel.
July 12th.
Anything, that's all I have. Chief, did you have anything, or Ralph, Chris? No?
Oh, but I sent you guys all some photographs of Public Works and the PD rescuing some ducks this morning that took shelter in a storm drain.
All right, good job. Good job, Chief.
Want to see those? We need audience participation, though. We need to.
Yeah, we'll open that up now. I did not receive any questions prior to the meeting, and I don't see anybody in
Those are all.
the audience. That's it.
Awesome.
Nope, nothing further.
So no executive
No
session.
executive. No.
All right, cool. All right, with that being said, it's 7:58 sharp. Committee of the whole meeting is adjourned. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay.